Hello, welcome to another episode of About Her. Today I have the wonderful Elise with me, and I'm so excited to have you. Welcome, Elise. You're a fellow light language channel, which is so dear to me. Um, I'd love to have you start with sharing how much you're comfortable with your journey with the light language and your priestess work, and how you came to the point where you're now and the work that you're now doing.
What a beautiful question. Thank you so much for having me, and it's always a joy to be sharing what I love with the world. So I will share more about how I got my light language activated as a start. I was in a writing workshop with my mentor in 2016. And it was so funny because I was the only one who showed up in a group workshop. So it turns out to be like a one-on-one mentoring. And it was supposed to be writing. And yeah, we did write some stuff. And halfway through the writing, my mentor was like, Elies, your light language is coming out. I'm like, nope, nothing is coming out. Like, I'm pretty sure nothing is happening. I'm happily writing. And I had resistance, obviously. But then literally right after I resisted, I hear this voice inside of me that tells me trust and surrender. And I'm like quite reluctantly, but following it and like, okay, fine, do whatever you need to do. And so she guided me through like a guided journey or a process that helped me to activate my light language. And surprisingly, she was pretty well, not it's not surprising that she's great, but surprisingly that I actually speak light language in like less than 5 minutes of the process, which I am surprised not by her, but by me, if you know what I mean. So obviously, I was like, oh my God, she was right. And how I felt for me was I felt almost like it's almost like you want to cough, like there was like a lump, like like you just have to like make a noise, like that's how kind of it felt like. Apart from what was coming out was not coughing, obviously. And then I just started to like speak the words, and obviously because I had her guiding me, it was pretty easy to kind of get the flow going. And also that was kind of how I quote unquote accidentally start channeling light language. So that's how I got started back in 2016. And then I keep on practicing it for my personal use, and then eventually leading me to where I am to help others to activate and speak their own light language as well. So that's kind of like the short version of my journeys. Yeah, if you have any question, then we can explore more from there.
Yes, thank you so much. I really loved hearing that because I feel that's something that we all go through when we activate our gifts, and especially with light language, which is, if you're not familiar with it, it's like a cosmic language that each of us, I believe, can speak, but most of us have not activated it. And it's like not a language that you can transition word to word, really translate, which means what, but it's a soul knowing. It's like a communication that goes from the soul to the soul. So your body feels it, your soul feels it, but your logic is kind of like left out a bit. And what you've touched upon is really interesting. I think that's what I wanna touch upon too, is this resistance that you had was like, no, there's no activation here. That's not why I came, maybe, or like resisting this activation of gifts, because I feel that's something that is happening a lot, where we kind of, because it goes beyond our logical understanding, we kind of resist the gifts that want to be unearthed in that moment. And I think it's really amazing that you had someone who was guiding you through, because what I've like found with my own clients is that often it's like, no, I'm not ready for that, or no, that's not for me. And they kind of like don't believe in their abilities to do light language channeling or even anything else. Like it's not limited to that, but like this resistance coming up. And I would love to ask you, what was it that you were resisting? Like, could you put a finger on what it was? Was this like the unknown, or is it maybe like doubting your abilities to be a channel, or what was the thing that make not jump right in out of curiosity?
There are a few factors, so of course it depends on the individual, but the common one is exactly what you're saying: fear of the unknown and fear of your own power. Because when you are channeling your light language, you are definitely in your power. Like, I always feel super powerful during channeling and after. Like, it's a kind of, you can't even describe using words, and it can be scary because our mind is scared of what we don't know, even if it is amazing stuff, it's just like, even if food is yummy, if I don't know what it is, I'm not going to eat it, but the food is yummy and it's healthy. And the other one that you brought up, which is great, is channeling. Actually, this is something I work through with a lot of my students, is that the fear, it's more like a prejudice as well around channeling. Like, oh, like every time when I ask them, what do you think of a channeler? How do you define channeling? Like, what's your first impression? Most people just went like, ew, like, it's too woo-woo, it's too psychic, it's too weird. Like, you are gonna call me crazy and weird and silly, and you're gonna shoo me off, and I'm not gonna fit in. So it's all that pre-programmed and preconceived ideas around channeling. So a huge part of it is fear of channeling. But even bigger part, if I were to dive deeper into it, just with anything that is not just like language, as you said, is at the end fear of our own power. I feel that a lot of times we fear success more than we fear failure, than we realize. Like, we are aware that we fear failure because we are taught to fear failure. We are programmed. In fact, we are too used to it. Like that's like the one thing we go to first thing first. Like, oh, I cannot fail. But fear of success is something like most people will be like, I'm not afraid of it. Why would I be afraid? I'm not afraid of my power. I'm not afraid of love. I'm not afraid of all the good stuff. But then why are you not having it then? Like, like, let's be real. Like, then what? Why not? So at the end, it's really that fear of our own power.
I love that you said that, because logically, it's not a thing. Like, it's like you said, it's like, why would I be afraid of being successful? But when we really look into that what I found for myself, when I like asked myself this question of like, okay, I'm doing all these beautiful things and I know, I feel they work, but where's the success coming? I had to like face this, oh, can I handle it? Am I really powerful enough to hold my vision like in physical world? Am I don't know, stable, or will I like be emotionally overwhelmed, or what it is that we struggle with? But it's not at first sight really a logical thing to say like, I'm afraid of these beautiful things like success or love. But in the end, I feel we all are, to a point, because maybe we don't trust ourselves enough. Maybe there's, like you said, this programming of, in most schools all around the world, it's like the focus on mistakes, on the failure, and not so much the like empowering to be successful and say like, I can handle whatever life throws at me, whatever the universe like offers me. And what came strongly when you talked just now was vulnerability, which I feel is a big thing, because the moment we say like, oh, maybe I could have that, and you're opening up to these gifts, to these miracles that can come into your world, there's also you making yourself really vulnerable, because what if not? There's a scary part to it. And I would love to know what you used to overcome this in yourself, because you said that first when you had this activation and you embraced your light language channeling, you did it for yourself. So you practiced with yourself. But this moment to go out into the world and say like, okay, well, that's what I can do. There's like, this is making you vulnerable. This is like really taking courage. So I would love you to share on what it was that like made you make this transition into like really sharing publicly and educating people in light language.
called coming out of the closet. It's a process. It's a process. I actually stopped speaking light language for a while. There was a gap in between. I don't know why. It was probably just, integration or resistance, who knows. But I stopped. But when I came back, I was like, whew, like I'm gonna teach people how to speak light language. So it was really weird. For me, it's just something that kind of happened gradually through my work, because I am so grateful that I get to do what I do, which is being a healer, a spirit guide, a coach, whatever label if any we want to put on it. But it's about my starseed remembrance that came in when I first remember that I am a starseed and I have that connection and remembrance. So that shifted my journey significantly, because I went from being afraid of being woo to entirely not caring, because it's not possible to care when I'm speaking about starseed. Like, I'm basically already putting myself out there to be as weird as possible, if that even makes sense. And as I share more about starseed, naturally light language kind of introduced itself way back into the process without me even trying. And it just kind of one thing happened to another and to another. So there isn't like a one answer to it. However, why I started to help people to speak light language, there is like water droplets coming out from I don't know where, which is weird.
It's not
This
good.
is so weird. This is so weird because like maybe like our starseed guide is here or something. No, it's just weird. Like where is it coming from? Anyway,
Okay, we see if it gets more, then like maybe you have to do something.
I mean, it is raining, but my roof is not leaking, so it's logically not possible. But anyway, sorry that I get distracted there. But it was just like a sprinkle. Like I was like, no. Yeah, talk about spirit, right? Let's talk about spirit. So where was I? Yeah, starseed and light language, and it was always, I believe in listening to the feedback that we receive, because these are like messenger from the divine. I mean, we have to have the discernment. Not everything that everyone say is true, but most of the time they come in as a messenger. So one of the sessions that I did during my starseed work is that when I was channeling light language during like the starseed healing journey and the starseed activation journey, a lot of people there said they started to get activated just by being in my presence and being in my session without even like having step-by-step guide, if you may. So that's one, I guess, I have the confidence, if you may, to go like, oh, I'm actually capable of doing this. That I am, like, I know what I'm doing, if let's put it that way, because until then, there was probably still a part of me like, yes, I can speak it, but can I help people? Because there is this fear like I cannot guarantee that they will speak it, But that is true for any case, whether light language or something else. And so that's kind of is how it get me to start teaching people how to speak it. And then over the time, as I start to decide to make it into like a program or a course, that's when I kind of, okay, let's come up with a more guided, a more structured process while still keeping the flow. So it was never rigid, like, yes, there is structure for those who needed it, but a lot of the time it is still really flowy. So yeah, that's kind of like how everything happened. And coming out of the closet is basically one step at a time, if there is any tips at all, because it's not something you can really force yourself either. I think it's a thin line, like you don't want to be hiding yourself forever, but at the same time you don't have to push yourself out immediately. So that's why I say it's one step at a time. So even if you start by something small, like for example, like wearing a crystal necklace and starting to talk a little bit more about that, maybe to your friend who is near you, even something small like that, and just to get yourself to be more vulnerable, to show the world that this spiritual side of you, like you don't have to suddenly go and tell people I can I can see spirit and I can talk to ghosts, if you know what I mean. Like you can start small, but the idea is peeling it layer by layer.
Yeah. Yeah, which I think is like the process most of us use. And I certainly have used because I was not courageous enough to like say like, hey, okay, that's all the things I do. And then list all the weird stuff out to people who've never heard it. So it's a gradual process. And I think it's often very beneficial to like not push ourselves because there is divine orchestration in everything. And yeah, like you said, there is definitely discernment needed to like see what is what and which message is needed right now for you to like really listen to. But the moment you're activated doesn't have to be the moment you speak about it. And if I look at like witchhood, within the witching community, there's a big part that says like, okay, if you're there's kind of like guidance on how to be a witch who is not practicing publicly because of everything that has happened within the last few hundred years. It's like no wonder. But I think that's really something that could soothe people who just started exploring their gifts, whatever it is, that it's not necessary like to come out of the closet just now, but to like really practice this for yourself until you feel more confident, until it feels more natural, until it feels more like part of you, until you fully integrate it. And then, like you said, step by step, sharing it a bit with someone who you might trust very much. And the interesting thing was like, for me, it took years because I remember quite a lot of like my past life as a witch. So it was quite a thing to speak with people about all the abilities that I have. And interestingly, people who have not been close to me, it has always been easier. So what I want to say with this is sometimes it's easier to talk to someone who is like-minded, but that you don't know that good. That is like maybe not your partner, your parent, your whatever, cousin or sister, but who is someone who's like we can talk really openly about light language, maybe even more than I could talk with my family a few years ago, because there's just like, oh, there's someone else who does the same thing. They understand me. They get me. So coming out of the closet doesn't need to be like a one size fits all thing. I feel that's good to take the pressure off in whatever we're doing. And I feel very passionate about speaking about this at the moment because before we hit record, we talked about how the energies of this year is really interesting, how the last year ended with kind of this hermit phase. And this year also like started kind of slow and a bit wobbly. And I feel now is the time for many of us to come out of their spiritual closet and to have like gifts activated. And so what to do with them if you got them, like me in a few moments where you said like, oh, okay, I didn't even know what light language is. So, okay, I'm fully activated. I now can speak it. And it's only 5 minutes of time in between. So our minds have to grasp that in some shape or form.
Yeah, because what came to mind when you were saying that is that we are just a vessel. So our gifts are not even technically ours, quote unquote. We are just a vessel for divine to work through us. So it's actually selfish to keep the gift and hide it, if I may just put it that way. So we are just a vessel to allow that to be shared through us so that it can reach out to the world. The same way we are benefiting from people who are sharing the gift with the world, then we receive it, right? So sometimes we want to be the one sharing the gift to the world so others can receive it too. And and also it doesn't necessarily means you have to do a job that fit into the category of spiritual work. Like, you can be like a priestess or a witch in the private day-to-day life. I share a lot about this in my priestess work as well, that you can be a priestess in private. Like, for example, my mom, she doesn't do any of the spiritual modality that we talk about at all. However, she has a lot of compassion, a lot of kindness, a lot of love. She is the embodiment of the goddess more than I am, honestly. And she doesn't even do any of this quote unquote spiritual work. That is priestess. That's like, to me, that is like the real priestess in action. And it's just the little thing, right? Like helping the neighbor to water the plants and sharing the fruits in the garden and things like that. Just really coming down to day, because at the end it's about divinity and our humanity. We take on this human form for a reason as well, because a lot of times when we are in this spiritual ascension, sometimes we tend to go like, oh, I want to go higher up and out of the body. But the thing is, we come in with this body for a reason, so we can enjoy this body. So it's also learning to embrace this body.
Yeah. The duality, I feel it's often like challenge to navigate between the two, like the spiritual world and the physical world, and like having a quote unquote normal job and doing spiritual work. And I love that you touched upon this, because I had shivers when you shared the example with your mother, and I totally agree. That's like how maybe we could even say it's supposed to be. It's like the full integration of a work, consciously or unconsciously, it doesn't matter. And we can all do that to an extent that even if we discover these gifts, which is so beautiful and can help so many people, it doesn't mean we have to go and switch our life around 100% in a moment. And like from this on, like you go into the full paradigm of wearing only long clothes and only walking in the woods barefoot. You can have it one. But that's like what people say, like, okay, now that I discovered how much power crystals hold and working with the pendulum, they said to me, do I now quit my job? No, you don't have to. You can, but you don't have to. It's not, you don't have to like give up your life just because something new that is more, spiritual, more divinely infused has activated. You can still hold both. And I think that's the dance that we have as humans. As you said, we're here for a reason in this physical body. So why not have both? We can hold both. I think sometimes we've learned in the society we live in to like say, this is good and this is bad. And we kind of like tend to not look at the areas in between, but we have the ability to hold the duality. And so why shouldn't we explore this more and expand our vessels to hold more of both sides, and not just say you need to go to a monastery if you discover your gifts, or you need to like completely shut your gifts out because you want to keep your corporate job. It doesn't have to be that way. And that is so empowering, I think, because we don't have to like fully change our life just because things integrate, but still we can help. Elies, I would love you to talk about the priestess work as well, because we haven't talked about that last time, and I'm so curious. It came up a few times within our conversation. So can you share a bit about the priestess work you're doing? If there's like a specific um priestess that you're called to work with, or yeah, what you're supporting your clients with.
It's actually, when I talk about the priestess, I often share that the priestess is one who has one foot on the earth and another foot on the sky. Exactly what you're saying, integrating the ether and the physical. So that's my definition of the priestess. And being a priestess in the modern world can be, as I was sharing about my mom, or it can be people like us who actually choose to share our gift with the world in a form of a occupation, if you may. And I started the priestess journey my whole life, I guess, without having a name for it. Because, like just because I thought that a priestess has to look a certain way, like you were saying, oh, it means I have to like work with crystals, work with flower, have to dance naked in the wood, whatever my mind make priestess out to be. And I'm like, I'm not a priestess. That's not me. However, when I truly understand what it means to be a priestess, which is the definition I was sharing earlier, and it's about having divinity in humanity, expressing that and being the embodiment, full embodiment of the goddess, of the quality of the goddess, of the divine feminine, of the priestess, whichever way you choose to describe it. That's when I realized that, oh my God, this my whole journey is about. Like my whole life is a priestess work, right? And so that's kind of my personal awakening to understand that's my priestess path. And so because I was doing the starseed work already, and then what came to me naturally was Lemurian priestess. So I started to help my clients to remember Lemuria. Like I literally had a masterclass on that. Not because you need to remember your past and stay stuck there. We are not trying to go back to Lemuria in that sense. The reason we want to remember Lemuria is we wanted to remember who we are and the power that we are. And because the women in Lemuria, they are held and respected in so much reverence, and I was sharing this partially in the masterclass that I was talking about. It was the days when women are not, like witches are not burned, like it is those days where women are not being put as sex object. We are not being seen as less than. We are not being seen as less important. If any, women is like the men even look up to the woman for guidance, for spiritual guidance, because women are the one who are more connected to the creative side, right? To the goddess and the divine self in that sense. And they offer guidance to men, and men willingly, happily take it on without the pride or the ego that the patriarchal society has made it out to be. So it was a wonderful time to be in, and a wonderful time to remember how that feels, because a lot of us as a woman forgotten that. And the reason we are remembering Lemuria is just to remember that is who we are, and that we are worthy and deserving, and that we get to be treated that way again. And it's not about having that to happen now, or anything like that. But for that to even happen in your external world, you got to first change it inside of you, right? So you need to understand that you are worthy and deserving. And by having that remembrance, it triggers back that quotes and that feeling. And that kind of leads me to the Lemurian priestess, to help them really just working through all the Lemurian priestess codes to really help them remember their gifts, awaken their calling, and really download your highest vision and make it into reality, which whatever that looks like for that person. As I said again, there is no right or wrong way. So yeah, that's kind of like how it started from me, and how I started to guide people in the priestess work.
Which is so important, because what you just described, what came to my mind was like the integration or the balancing of the masculine and the feminine. Because the Lemurian times, as you just described them, were like the role model of how society can worship the feminine wisdom. And the society we now live in, or lived in, I feel it's really transitioning fast, is very programmed by male power and male structure. And so if we remember within ourselves the importance and the wisdom of the female, and we have already integrated, because this is the world we live in right now, the male wisdom to an extent, or like the male structure, and we can bring them together and form our own versions of balance of those two energies, then we can like collectively give that out, because the more people do their work and remember their ancient lives in like Lemuria, for example, the more people can balance these energies. I feel we can really collectively make a shift to a world where everything is a bit more equal and there is not this like power dynamic that is kind of taking power from someone else and giving it to someone else, but it's more like a giving and taking, that it's more in flow. That's what comes to me. And I think it's a work that is deeply nourishing for the soul, but also deeply important for the collective. And I love how that plays out, that you can have both, because that's something that I'm working with a lot. It's like, you don't have to choose. You can really have both. And it's not selfish to work on yourself. That's something that is coming up a lot. And the way you just shared it, I feel it's a beautiful example for remembering that working on ourselves and connecting to our divine essence, or connecting to our like soul journey, is not something that you do in your free time just because it's fun. And then you go and like do the hard work or do the normal life, but it's something that is sharing your gift with the world, giving out your codes, as you said before, and therefore you don't have to feel ashamed for it. You don't have to feel guilty for taking the time. On the contrary, it's you sharing your gift. You said that has helped me a lot when I was struggling to come out of my spiritual closet. This idea of like, oh, if I'm not sharing what I know, I'm actually doing a disservice to people. So it's selfish to not share. And that's exactly the contrary to what I was raised with here collectively, to say, like, if you share about stuff that only you care about, it's selfish. And it's like not you're supposed to do. When I feel the contrary is true, by now I have integrated that, but that is a struggle that I see, at least here in Europe, a lot, especially with women. So I love that you touched upon the Lemurian power of the female, because the society I've been raised in is you have to be the good girl. You have to care for everyone else because you care for yourself. So don't take time for yourself until everyone else is kind of satisfied and happy as well. And then if there's time left, care for yourself. And what we remember in our past ancient times is like self-care is part of the spiritual work, is part of a collective work that we all benefit from.
Yeah, exactly. So
What a shift,
beautiful.
isn't it? Yes, yes. Oh, I love that very much. Is there anything that you have around integrating these when people remember their Lemurian work, their lives there, or they're connecting to their priestess energy? How would you support them in bringing that into this life, and like really with small habit? We talked about like having crystals. We both have them right now where we're recording. Like what is like something that you love doing to like really integrate all these knowledge that comes through in the sessions and all these findings into the daily lives? Because I feel that's where we often get lost. We have these beautiful awarenesses, and then life happens, and a few months later it feels like kind of it's gotten buried again.
So is your question around, can you rephrase your question again? Is it about how we integrate is it specific to Lemurian priestess, or you are talking about general spiritual practice?
No, I was thinking about Lemurian, but I haven't made it that clear. Yeah, how would you like integrate this wisdom that you got from your Lemurian remembrance into your daily life? Because I feel that's something where we get lost.
So it depends on which part of the remembrance, right? Because remembrance is huge. You can remember your gift, you can remember your power, you can remember your truth. And a lot of time when we work through with Lemurian is pretty much Blue Rose of Lemuria is one thing that come out a lot for me, and it's one of the tools I work with my students, our clients as well. And my personal experience with Blue Rose of Lemuria is that it really works with expressing your truth, which is obviously part of owning your power. And the Blue Rose of Lemuria doesn't literally mean just like rose in that sense. I mean, yes, it's a rose frequency. However, it has come to me in many shade of form, from aquamarine crystal that came to me before I even know Lemuria is a thing, And then, it came to me in the form of blue rose, and then it came to me in the form of blue light. And then, when I connected the dot, then it leads to Lemuria. But the thing is, the blue rose of Lemuria really helped me and my clients too to teach how to speak my truth, our truth unapologetically, in a bodacious way, unapologetically, and which naturally kind of leads to the light language. Not always, not everyone has to speak light language, but it kind of come together. It's about like that speaking of truth, expressing of truth, and then how does that translate and integrate into our daily life? Literally is practicing that. Like, are you speaking your truth in your personal relationship day to day? Like, do you communicate what you want? Or do you expect somebody to be a mind reader and guess what you want? And can you also say no? This is also kind of part of the divine feminine healing that you touched on earlier about the good girl syndrome is kind of linked to that, right? Like, if you don't like something, can you just say no? Like, if someone asks you for help, can you just say, now is not a good time. I don't have the space, and I might, if you know someone, you can refer them to someone, but just like a no. And most importantly, when you do say no, you don't need to justify, and you don't have to make up lies. Sometimes people feel guilty and they say, no, I feel sick. No, you're not sick. Like, it's like, you just say no. Like, you don't have to make up a new story to do that. So I think that's how you integrate it in your daily life. And then if you remember your gift, depending on what your gift is, then again, like, how can you integrate it in your daily life, right? If, let's say, your gift is writing, are you going to write a blog about spiritual awakening to share with the world? Or maybe you're going to start writing a beautiful love letter to your loved ones. Like, just see how it integrates into your daily life to make the spiritual practical and the practical spiritual, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. And I loved when you talked about the blue rose of Lemuria, because for me that there was this instant connection to the throat chakra, that we are all like in the activation phase right now collectively. And for me, just like thinking, having that visual of the blue rose is kind of like making space in the throat chakra. And I think it's often like these subtle things that you talked about. It's like you integrate these like deep spiritual insight that you have with really practical day-to-day steps, like maybe thinking of the blue light, or maybe wearing something blue, or whatever it is for you. But it can be really small things. It doesn't have to be that one, moment that you get in a movie, and from then on everything changes. But it can be an integration that is like working on a very subtle level and is nonetheless really powerful, because we talked about that a few times. We integrate it in our lives as they are right now, and we don't have to like fully shape shift into something else. We can really integrate it and work with it. And yeah, maybe then we write blogs or books or love letters or whatever. But it comes out of a deeper knowing and out of an empowerment, which I think is ultimately the underlying texture of this whole conversation, is connecting back to your power. If you do it through the priestess work, or if you do it through light language, or through a starseed remembrance, it actually doesn't matter that much, if you will, because for this life, for this body that we're now in, if we remember at all, if we start to connect somewhere, then the rest kind of gets activated in a ripple effect. You talked about that before, I think, when we were off record, that the moment you talk about like starseed remembrance, like language sometimes just comes naturally. And so I think that's the case with many of our gifts and our integration work, is that it kind of just ripple out, and we start where we feel the most called.
Yeah, and you brought up such a good point that stop waiting for that one big moment. Like, I mean, yeah, there is big moment in life, so to speak, but every moment count. Even the moment that is inefficient, unproductive, lazy, that our society will call it. And this is something we talked about just now, right? Like being lazy because I don't feel like doing anything. I don't want to do anything. Those moments are part of rest and integration. Well, again, having the discernment, so don't use that as an excuse as well. But if that is truly part of the process, then it is needed, just like athlete has also rest day. We have rest day too. So every moment is a big moment, like every moment count. And another day I was just kind of like I was in a very reflective mode without trying to. These days it just kind of come, right? Like the aha moment. I was noticing how I have been programmed to be perfect. And I was constantly trying to create a perfect moment. Like whether that perfect moment means that I have to arrive at the right place at the right time by trying to control. That's what I mean, trying to create it. Like the food has to be yummy. I have to arrive on time, The traffic has to be perfect. It should not have a jam. Just like every single freaking moment of my life, I was trying to control that. And I was like, how tiring is my life? And honestly, nothing is ever in control. And that is just like driving people crazy. And then it hit me that like there is no perfect moment. There is only present moment, and that's like the most precious moment. So kind of like these three words, right? Like there is the perfect moment is the present moment, and there's the most precious moment. And I was like, okay, like it's just a coming back to the here and now, here and now, and here and now. Yeah.
That is so beautiful. And oh my God, I felt so, oh, sorry. I thought it was off. I felt so remembered of my own journey because this what is this? I'm on Do Not Disturb and my phone is ringing. Interesting. Um, sorry. I felt so remembered of my own life because what you just described with the perfect moment, I have that too. And it's a thing that I'm trying to decondition for a long time, and I'm doing it layer by layer. But I smile so much because it's like control, it's really exhausting. And I feel it's something that collectively we hold the want or need to control our lives and also like the lives and the behavior of others, and it's just not working. So the moment we can connect back and align into the knowing that everything is divinely orchestrated and we are not only part of the universe, but we are the universe, we are holographic art form of the universe. So there is no control, but the ultimate control is like to surrender into this. I feel always like, oh, there's a sigh of relief coming because ultimately what you cannot be perfect. We cannot control anything. Even though we try, and in this trying, we not lose so much energy, but we focus energy on parts that we don't need to focus it because we cannot control it anyway. So why not like call back our energy and focus it on, like you said, the present moment, on the exploration of our gifts, or just quote unquote into the integration of those? Because this integration part, if you've ever done yoga, you'd know that the last part of yoga is the most important one, where you just lay down in corpse pose and integrate. And it's the same with life, I feel. We kind of haven't allowed ourselves for a long time, collectively speaking, to lay down and integrate. And that's something that is so, so, so necessary. So all these moments are perfect in their own divine form. And who are we to judge what the universe is orchestrating right now? So the moment we can just be present and integrate, what a gift and what a freeing up of energy this could provide.
Yeah, and one thing I like to tell myself is like mind your own business. So it's like it's just so blunt that it helped me to remember. So every time I try to control, because I can't remember where I read this. I think it might be from Mike Dooley's book. I think because I read so many books. I think it's the one that is called Leveraging the Power of the Universe. If I recall it correctly, it's from that book. So he and many other teachers actually talk about like how there is your work or your business. I call it business, but your work, and then other people work, and then the divine work, right? So you are only in your lane. It's like driving, just drive in your lane. The rest is not your problem, really. But then we try to wanting to control what other people are. I mean, imagine driving and then you are thinking what the other person next to you, your lane is doing, and then you are trying to orchestrate what the person in another road that is totally not visible even, is doing. It's just not even logical, but we try to do it with our life. So yeah, it's kind of like mind your own business, and everything else seriously is not yours. And when you understand that, you realize that literally most of the things are not on your plate. So we are often putting down a lot more on our shoulder and carry that burden more than we ever need to, because those are like really, really not your business. But then we carry it. Like a good example is, for me, I carry a long time. Like I felt like I'm responsible for. So ever since my father passed away, I felt like I had to take on the provider role, and like I gotta be the man of the house because I'm the only child and there is only me and my mom. And then unknowingly or unconsciously, I started to take on that role of like I become responsible for my mom. Obviously, I'm not. Nobody is ever responsible for anybody's life except when you are carrying a baby in your stomach, obviously. But like I started to like take it very personally when she fell sick, because then, or like when her health is not quote unquote again perfect, like when the blood test report is not perfect, then I take it personally. I will be like, if only I had done that, if only I had known that, da 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 da. But then I realized, oh my god, that's why I have a frozen shoulder, which I'm still healing through right now. Actually, it's recovering, but I was going through this period of time where what exactly am I carrying here that my shoulder literally and physically become frozen? And that's when I started to see all these layers, right? I'm carrying my mom's responsibility and probably even the world responsibility, even though logically I know it's not mine, but I'm busybody, I guess. So I started carrying that with me. And then I'm like letting it go, letting it go, letting it go. Yeah. So again, it's a journey, it's a process. And I guess we are just kind of like opening up the doorway for people to kind of let the switch be turned on, or like the buttons to be, for the buttons to be clicked and everything to awaken, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yes, I totally agree. I agree. We're taking on so many things that are not ours. And like, from the Kabbalistic teachings, they even go so far to say like everything that is not in the present moment is not yours to carry. So you worrying about the future, or you like being resentful about the past, it's not yours to carry. It's not your lane. So stay in your lane, like you described it so beautiful. It's really be in the present moment and care for your life, for how you feel. That's your job. And how your partner feels, or how you behave, or how your family feels, or how they behave, it's none of your business. And that might feel like very harsh, but it's also big relief. And it doesn't mean that we don't care for them, but it's not that we need to be responsible for them. And there's a big difference. And so when you said that, I thought like, oh, that's such a beautiful explanation for how easy life can be. Because if we don't think about the past, the future, worry about any other people that we like hold dear in our heart, and try to be responsible for them, what is left is you with your present moment. And that's stripping away, I would say, 99% of the overwhelm so many of us hold. So life can be truly beautiful if we reduce it to what's just ours. And as you said, the job we signed up for here in this life is to help people remember this, help people connect back to themselves, so that they can have this wisdom activate within them because it's already there. It's just like kind of, I have forgotten it for a long time, or there have been layers and layers and layers put on top of it that we like subtly stripping away gently, like unearthing these gifts and then coming back to ourselves and activating whatever we're here to do, which is so beautiful. So I thank you so much for that wisdom and these activations. Oh my God. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Elies. That was very insightful.
You're welcome. Yeah, thank you as well. We are co-creating this together. Always beautiful to see what comes through because we never know. But every time it comes through, it's like, oh my God, I got the water droplet coming out of nowhere. And you got, you stop and then like your phone is ringing when it's supposed to be on do not disturb, right? Like all the synchronicity of like divine is like, I always say this is like our angels are cheering with like the pom-pom. It's like, yeah, you are getting it. Finally, you girls are getting it.
Yes.
They might be like, oh my God.
We might feel disturbed by it, but actually I totally agree with you. If we stay relaxed within ourselves, then it's like, okay, that's confirmation, or that's like maybe a pattern interruption, or like a subtle hint for something, but it's not a sign that things are not working, rather the opposite. So love that we can just let them be the way they are. I thank you so much, my dear.
Thank you.
Let me ask you for the last question, like, where do you want people to connect with you? How can they find you?
You can find me on IG at Alice Hadi or also on alicehadi.com. And basically everything will be found there. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'll link that in the show notes below, and then they can connect with you through Instagram or your website.
Yeah.
Oh,
thank you again, Anna.
I'm wishing you the most beautiful week and lots of integration time, as much as you need to like fully make up speed after the transition into the new year. Wishing you all the best. Goodbye.
Goodbye. See you all.
See you.